I kind of jumped the gun there. I'm so excited to get started. Welcome, Soundies, to our Sound for Video session. Really good to have you all here today. Hope you had a good week and had a chance to make some great sound. So, today's session, we are going to have a special guest. So, we reached out to Doc Justice, my new friend, and let's go ahead and bring Doc in so we can talk a little bit here. So, here we go. Doc, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Curtis. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to get to talk with you.
Yeah, pleasure is mine. So, for those that don't know you, do you want to do a, well, actually, I guess the best way to do this, why don't we, I'm thinking like maybe a little bit of a history from your perspective, how you got into production sound for film and TV.
Sure.
Maybe whatever you're comfortable with, but I'm thinking maybe like the 10-minute version.
Sure.
Okay.
This could go on for hours. You can. So my name is Doc. I am a sound mixer and audio supervisor. The brief history of how I got my start is I came up as a DJ. So the music route, not unlike a lot of other sound professionals. But I started DJing when I was a teenager, doing mobile parties, bar and bat mitzvahs, sweet 16s, weddings, that kind of thing. That eventually progressed to DJing in nightclubs in and around Philly, and eventually onto commercial radio. I was fortunate enough, right around the time I had graduated college in Philly. There was a reality show called The Real World, which came to town. And I was able to get my first production assistant job on that. And when I got that job and saw what all the sound mixers were doing, I was like, that's my career. I'm going to push for that. And I did. And a career in reality TV came from that. And not everybody dreams of a career in reality TV, but it was the absolute perfect thing for me at the perfect time. And it allowed me to evolve as a sound professional. It allowed me to travel the world. It allowed me to meet the most interesting people you could ever meet, from all walks of life. And I had a pretty great life come from it. My time in working in television allowed me to join the Cinema Audio Society. It allowed me to join IATSE, of which I'm a member of Local 695. And it eventually brought me to found Halter Technical, where we create headphones and headsets for production sound, for TV and film video content production. So from those humble days of DJing bar and bat mitzvahs, that there is a direct link to me sitting here right now with you.
That's it's so interesting to hear everyone's story and how they get into it. And I have heard a lot of different production sound mixers coming from the music world. I will confess that you're the first DJ I have met that or took the DJ route there. So I have to
Yeah,
think when you got so DJing, you do everything, right? I mean, you're choosing the music, you're doing the music programming, but you're putting on the show. You have to do your own engineering generally. That's basically
exactly. Yeah.
okay.
So literally as a teenager, I thought I was going to be like Jazzy Jeff and Spin Bad and all my favorite DJs at the time. Little did I know I would be playing the YMCA at bar mitzvahs. But what it did teach me was it taught me the very basics of signal flow. And I had to learn very quickly how to set up the system. As a mobile DJ, we would bring the system to location. So that taught me the basics of how to get audio from point A to point B to point C. A little bit about wireless, because we were using wireless microphones.
Mhm.
So I had this very basic understanding from doing that. So by the time I got to see what doing sound for TV was like, oh, I know how to do this.
Hmm.
I just need to learn the politics and policies and processes of set life. And I did fail to mention, I also had some studio experience in there as well, interning. I interned for Boys to Men for a little while, and I worked in several recording studios. So the music side was something I learned and loved. And it was just about applying that all to doing audio for video.
Okay. So, what about at the radio station? Were you like an on-air personality, a DJ, or did you also do some engineering there as well, or how did that work?
I had it was for a brief period of time in little under a year in 2001 for
Hmm.
Q102 in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I was a mix show DJ, so I had a Friday night mix show.
Okay.
So most of what I did was pre-recorded, but then I would come into the studio and just be an on-air personality with the guys who put me on.
Okay.
And it was more for promoting my nightclub business.
Gotcha.
I got a lot of, once I became Q102's Doc Justice, I became a lot more popular. It was very beneficial, but it was
Yeah.
also a lot of fun too.
I think what you underscore here is really interesting to me because I think a lot of us come into this area, and you know there are lots of different areas here. Of course, I do mostly corporate video and the audio part
Right.
of that as well. But I think for a lot of soundies, what happens is we come in because we have this fascination with a lot of them come in with a fascination with music, and then learn the engineering. Some come in with a fascination of the engineering and then learn how to kind of fit it into a different niche. But what I'm hearing from you is that there's definitely a business side of this as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like there's a establishing yourself. You went to Q102. You became Q102's Doc Justice, and to really kind of build your business. Can you talk a little bit about some of your experiences on that side?
Yeah, 100%. This is something I feel very strongly about, that this business foundation is important. No matter if you're a sound professional or in any other industry in the world, having a business foundation can only help people to grow. I studied business in school. I was a marketing major in college. Um, I always felt that I had a mind for marketing and branding and promotion. Um, and as a DJ, it was important back then. And obviously, this is before social media and before we had access to a lot of the promotional tools that we have right now. But even then, it was very important to promote myself. If the nightclubs didn't know who I was, then they had no reason to book me over the next, DJ Average Joe. If
Mhm.
the customers knew who I was, they would be more excited to come see me. So there was that aspect of it. But there was also the aspect of building out the business as a business, um, not just creating demand, but creating a corporate structure, so to speak, and separating a business expenses from personal expenses and accounts and all of that. And I learned at an early age how important and beneficial this stuff is. I would say I'm still learning exactly how to implement it all, and I don't know that I'll ever have it perfected, but I'll keep trying to perfect it. Um, but yeah, for any sound professional, it doesn't matter what area of sound people are working in, to be able to approach it and separate the personal aspect and emotional aspect of work from running a business, for me, is paramount. And I encourage people to look at it, to take it, to view it from that lens.
Yeah, it is, and it's a different perspective because I know for me, certainly audio, my fascination with audio really was a passion project, and I actually
Yeah.
had to kind of invent projects to work on to apply my passion for sound. you know, I actually recorded my very first project was actually recording an audiobook on
Love it.
a cheap little USB microphone at the time.
Yeah.
But that's how you learn. And I think it is important to, if you intend to do this as a money making venture, especially if it's going to be your career, then understanding and I think being realistic about the things that you have to do to run it as a business is a different thing than doing it as a hobby. If you're just going to do hobby live streams on the weekend, that's a very different thing. And that's a completely
Yes.
legitimate thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. But, it's a great thing to do. And that's how I started actually my YouTube channel, to be honest.
Yeah.
But having that, there's a different mindset that goes along with, okay, is this a hobby or is this a business? And,
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think you used a good word there with perspective, and it's about, being honest with ourselves and saying, what do I want to achieve and what do I want out of this? I no longer DJ for profit, but I continue to DJ at home. Sometimes I'll go, live on Twitch or something, but I became very realistic about what I wanted out of DJing. I did not want it to be my career. I did not want to be this age now in the nightclubs. And I had to specify my goals and then work towards my goals. And I think people can often lose sight of that because you get on a path and it's easy to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and following down that path. And it's easy to lose sight of, why did I start this? What do I want out of this? What do I love about this? What do I not love about this? So having that perspective, I think, is a really good, it's a really good tool. It's a really good lesson for all of us too, to take time to be introspective and think about it and then actually apply those wants and needs towards goals.
For sure. So I'm curious, you've been in the production sound world for a while. And even in the short time I've done some production sound, I've seen some changes. What are some of the big changes you've seen since you've been doing production sound?
Yeah, I feel like I'm lucky to have come up at a time. So I started that show, The Real World, was in 2003 or 4. It was 2004. But I feel like I'm lucky to have come up at a time where the switch from analog systems to digital systems was starting to become ubiquitous. So the adoption was happening. So I got to learn on entirely analog gear, analog mixers, analog wireless, everything analog. On that show, we would have our field mixer on that show was a Went X5 5-channel mixer. All it did, was not a recorder. You could mix down to 2 stereo tracks, and we would send wireless hops to camera, and the stereo track on the camera, that was the final mix. So that's what post used. So we would learn how to separate sources and try and have as many sources as possible for post to deal with, but only having those 2 tracks. Field mixers became much more capable. We, went from analog mixers to analog recorders to digital recorders. Now we can run seemingly unlimited number of tracks in a bag right now. Wireless has evolved unbelievably. That show was using Sennheiser SK50s at the time, which were probably about the size of a iPhone Pro Max. Maybe they were pretty flat too, but they were large, capable 50 milliwatt transmitters. They were frequency agile receivers. So the receivers were not fixed to a single frequency, but they were fixed to a single block of frequencies, where we have much greater capabilities in wideband frequency ranges now. And now, of course, we have digital wireless with a whole host of features, encryption, recording transmitters, remote control capabilities. We have, frequency changing on the fly now. Like, we have so many added features. We're lucky to have it, but I think it was cool for me to be able to go from the basics through each step and see the progression. I'm also glad I came up at a time where I played NES rather than jumping straight into PlayStation 5. Like, I'm happy to have seen the whole progression along the way,
Yeah.
and learn it all. I feel like for people jumping into it now, it can get overwhelming. There are ways to learn it all that simplifies it, but it can get overwhelming. So there's been, it's just literally every piece of gear we use now is different than when I started. And I love that. I don't want to be using the same tools and toys that I was 20 years ago. And I don't want to be using the same tools 10, 20 years from now that we are now. So I love this technological advancement and progression.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I even think if the few times that I have actually been in a situation where I had to basically live mix or mix down to two channels only,
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to do. Like that's a really challenging thing to do. And I think a lot of people miss that experience that are starting today. They don't get that experience because they don't have to have that experience. They can just record ISOs and do everything in post and as long as they have a post workflow. But then you put them in a live situation and it's kind of like, oh, how do I approach this? And it's a kind of a really eye-opening, interesting experience too. And that's really where you started with that 5-channel mixer. You guys had to get it right? I mean, it's going to camera. That's all that went to camera was what you mixed on that board. So
exactly. So what it all boils down to is experience and training, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we all tend to look at sound as one thing. Like, if you're a sound recordist, a sound mixer, you record sound and you can do any job, right? Well, specialties exist for a reason, and people who specialize in broadcast mixing for sports are going to have a difficult time doing a narrative feature, or doing audio for a wedding, for wedding videography. All these things, they have the basics of signal flow and recording levels, and the basics of audio engineering might be there for all of them. But it's the tips and tricks and the things we learn along the way, the things we can hear. Like, from your experience doing corporate videos, when you hear a certain sound, you're able to identify, is that a rustle from a lav mic, or is that something popping in my signal chain? Like, we learn to hear those things that you can't maybe quite articulate in the moment, but we know what they are and how to remedy them really fast. So, like, for my own experience doing reality TV and large scale house reality and these big installation type stuff, they seem incredibly complex to people who specialize in some other area of production sound. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's my focus, and that's what I do and have learned and know, so that when it comes time to, do the nuance of things for a narrative, for a scripted film, I might not have the instincts that they've developed to know when to lay down carpet, or to know, when to shut things off, or when to have that nuance. So the complexities are there across genres. The challenges are just different.
Agreed. So, and that brings me to what I'm dying to know. What can you tell us about one of your favorite projects and kind of some of the things that were to you the most interesting about that project?
Oh, sure. So yeah, like I said, I loved um, house reality. So large scale installations. Maybe that comes from my first job in TV, being in the real world where it was a big house install. When I say house install, what I'm talking about is not only do we have lav mics on all the cast, and we have a whole bunch of sound mixers running around following them, but we also have surveillance cameras in every room of the house. We have surveillance microphones. We have telephones on that particular show. That we have a telephone where the cast could call to the control room and speak to a producer, so they didn't have to speak to any cast member or any crew members. And then, of course, there is the big control room build itself where producers can pull up any one sound source, whether it's a cast member's lav or a surveillance microphone in a room, and listen in to be able to follow the storyline. So those kind of things, that's really what get my gears turning. That's what I've always loved. I love planning and executing these big, large-scale installations. I did a show in Mexico called Redneck Island. Award-winning. No. This was a CMT show that if people watched it, I'm sure they won't admit that they did now. But the premise of the show was basically like Redneck Survivor with silly games and stuff. It's a comedy competition show.
Right.
But it was a large-scale house reality competition show. Even though it's on the beach in Mexico in huts, production built these gazebos for all the contestants to live in. So we had surveillance mics in and around every gazebo. We had, they built a barge out in the ocean. And I had to put surveillance mics out in the ocean. Well, how do you do that? So like figuring those things out are things that I loved. And we had one of our A2s get out there in a canoe and run cable, literally run cable through the ocean.
Wow.
So things like that are an absolute blast for me. And then on that show itself, like during every competition, much like Survivor or any of these other competition shows, we have to figure out we have to think about all the ways we can capture dialogue or capture the sounds to tell the story of that particular competition. So plant mics are huge for us. We have to plant microphones anywhere where we might have to capture a sound that either a lav wouldn't catch, or sounds, not coming from the contestants' mouths too. So we have to think about all these things ahead of time, come up with a plan, place the microphones, execute this plan, have the backup plans in place, because we all know what happens to best laid plans, and really have the systems, put trust and faith in the systems that we created, so that when we execute them, they go ahead and work flawlessly 100% every time with no problems ever.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's the thing that fascinates me. I've never done reality. So the thing that fascinates about to me is that the amount of experience I feel like you have to bring to the table to really do that well. I mean, you had better do some serious planning, and you better have a B plan and a C plan.
Oh yeah.
Because I just feel like the chances of walking away not capturing some critical piece of sound to the overall story, because nobody knows the exact story going in. I mean, they set things up. It's unscripted, so anything could happen. So it's fascinating. In that light, you have probably worked with a variety of different mixers over the year and mixer recorders. Tell us about some of your experiences with each of them. What are the strengths of each of them? Because everyone, there are a variety of different choices out there. Production mixers have used a whole array of different tools to do the job. What are some of your impressions of the different systems? And I guess I
Yeah.
wouldn't ask you to identify if you have a favorite, but what do you see as some of the strengths, at least, of it, the different systems?
So well, I'll say this to start. Um, working in with my experience working in reality TV, we have to tailor our gear and our systems to every show. So the gear that we use changes from show to show.
Mhm.
This isn't typical owner operator type stuff. We work with large rental houses to outfit very specifically, and that goes from the recording systems to the wireless systems to the comms and everything in between. Um, so I feel very fortunate to have been able to work with a lot of different systems. And also these are systems that we have our control room sisters. We work at our desk consoles with large capacity, high track count recorders, and also field recorders in bag. So we have a lot of different systems to choose from. And right now, there's no shortage of options.
Yeah.
Mixer recorders from Sound Devices, their latest being the 8 series from the Scorpio down to the 833. They also have their prosumer line, the Mix Pre series, which are really fantastic, handy little recorders that we use in an array of situations. Zaxcom has their Diva 32, and which is more for a cart or more for installation type setups, and then their Nova, which is an extremely light all-in-one system with receivers built in. Just an incredible back saver for the ENG crowd. The Aton with the Kantar, Sonosax. There are just so many options out there now. And that's before we even go down in scope to the Zoom and the Tascam and all those other brands that are putting out more affordable options. What we choose on any given show is determined by the show's needs. Often in a control room, we will have one or multiple high track count recorders. The Sound Devices 970 is still a very popular one. It's one that I've used time and time again, which can record up to 64 tracks, and which we will use, the entirety of those 64 tracks, and sometimes have multiple ones. And then have different sound mixers, what we call on the floor, on set, in the moment, multi-tracking into their bags, party dialing, so dialing up any frequencies that they need to in the moment. Things are getting more and more capable because we are recording more and more tracks in smaller and lighter packages. We have the ability for more flexibility, more power. We just have a whole array of options now, and it's pretty awesome. So I don't know if I've successfully avoided the question of which are my favorites, but there's things to take from that.
Of course, yeah. And that's what the more experience I get, I feel like I come to that same conclusion. It really just depends on the needs of the particular production you're working on, and that's what really drives the decision making. And hopefully,
Yeah.
everyone has an open enough mind to be able to see the value of the different systems and be able to be agile enough to move to that when it makes sense to move.
Yeah, we are seeing a big revolution happening right now in wireless transmitter systems, transmitter receiver systems. The push to digital modulations was, it began 15 years or so ago, but now we're seeing the widespread adoption among a lot of wireless manufacturers. And because not all digital modulation is the same, no two things are alike, and they all have their different proprietary codes and modulations. They also have different feature sets that they're able to offer. And different manufacturing processes that they're able to offer. There are specialty transmitters now, which really help when planning out shows. We have water resistant and waterproof transmitters. We have transmitters that are capable of recording and transmitting at the same time. We have different takes on remote control. Some systems, Sound Devices Audio Limited brand uses Bluetooth for remote control, where Zaxcom and Shure have different flavors of remote control over 2.4 gigahertz. Electrosonics has Dweedle tones. So they all have different takes on it, and they all have the pros and cons. So being able to choose which is best for the particular show in the particular moment, and not being tied to, I need to use this because this is what I own and I have to make it work. It's the equivalent of saying I own one saw and I have to build a house. Well, that saw is not the right tool for every part of construction.
Right.
So being able to choose the tools for the job is an important part of what we do. And I think that's true across specialties of audio recording and sound engineering.
Completely agree. Yeah. One thing that I'm not sure everyone here knows, so you're a member of the Cinema Audio Society. Can you tell us a little bit about what is a Cinema Audio Society and how did you become a member?
Yes, so Cinema Audio Society, you will commonly see it if you stay to the end of the credits on movies, and once you get past all the people we don't really care about and get to the sound department, you'll see people's names with the initial CAS afterwards, and that stands for Cinema Audio Society. It is a prestigious philanthropic organization that really exists to push the awareness and promote technical prowess of its members and promote awareness of the challenges of sound recording in general for film and for video. So the way you become a member is through experience and sponsorship. So I don't remember all of the exact requirements to membership, but you have to have a certain number of years of experience in the field. You have to have some notoriety to your name, because only members in good standing can sponsor somebody else's membership. So there's that credibility and that validation. So I was really fortunate enough to be sponsored by Andy Rovin's longtime boom op and Jeff Wexler, longtime sound mixer, two people who I admire, call my mentors, call my heroes in sound. They were the ones who had sponsored my application, and I'm forever indebted to them. But there are also other levels of membership to Cinema Audio Society. There is a student membership, and they even have student awards. There are associate memberships available. And the benefit of all of these memberships is this is an exclusive club, right? These are Emmy winners, Oscar winners, in not just in production sound, but in post-production as well. And these are the best of the best. So when it comes to networking, when it comes to seeing and being seen, knowing and being known, there's no better organization in the world for that. You get the credibility. There's a weight that gets attached to my name being a CAS member. And I also have access to all of their events. They have educational events, they have philanthropic events, and of course, an awards show every year that precedes the Oscars, and often affects the Oscars decision makers as well. So it is a fantastic organization that I can't say enough about. So anybody who is even interested in learning more about it, check out their website. You will just be jaw dropped by the amount of talent and knowledge in this organization. And it is a worldwide organization too. It's not just confined to the United States. And for the award show, people fly in from all over the world to be a part of it and to honor all that is sound, and being able to be honored by the people who do it and know it most intimately. That's a real reward for everybody.
Yeah, carries a lot of weight that way. It's
Yeah.
it's the people that really know. So
Yeah.
good. So we're going to take maybe a 90-degree turn here. I want to go back to talking about being on set. What are
Yeah.
some of the biggest challenges you have found being on set or on stage, as far as production mixing is concerned?
Oh, loaded question. There are many challenges, right? So when it comes to a pure audio engineering standpoint, in the unscripted world, the biggest challenge is knowing that there's no take two. Get it right in the moment. If something is wrong in the moment, being able to have the awareness of what is wrong, what is happening, how can I remedy this without negatively affecting the production. And I guess that's true for scripted as well. Knowing when to step in, knowing having the wherewithal to say there's a problem and we need to fix it, or being able to do it discreetly. So it's that balancing act that is that's a big challenge. Much of production, much like any other industry or business on earth, is the politics of that business, and knowing boundaries and knowing who you can say certain things to and who you can't say certain things to, right? There we speak differently to our parents than we do to our bosses, right? So knowing like how to get things done, when to step in, when not to step in, who to talk to alleviate certain issues, knowing how to navigate the production lifestyle. That's a challenge that we all deal with on set and off set, is balancing work life challenges and not taking those issues onto set with us. And so we have so many challenges from a technical standpoint. We have so many challenges from a personal and emotional standpoint. And it's true for every industry, but in an industry that takes such a toll on us, we work long hours, we work crazy schedules. We don't, may not be home for dinner at 6 p.m. So all of these things take a toll on us, and knowing our personal limits and personal boundaries as well is a big challenge. I thrive off of the on-set challenges. When there is something, when somebody comes to me and they want, they have something that they have no idea, they want to accomplish a shot or a competition, and they have no idea how we're going to record sound for it. And me and my team can spring into action and bounce ideas off of each other. Those are the things I thrive on. I love that collaboration, that problem-solving stuff. That's my favorite. My least favorite is after a 16, 18-hour day, how am I going to do laundry? Those challenges I don't love so much, but they all come with the territory, and it's navigating those waters that is the biggest challenge of all.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are in an interesting position now, because you run this little company here called Halter Technical, and you produce some headphones for production sound specifically. Why? How did that happen? That's really, really interesting to me. So how did you get there?
So Halter Technical was absolutely born on set. On one particular competition show, the producer, so we hand out IFBs, belt pack receivers, so that producers and directors can monitor the audio that's being recorded on set.
Mhm.
And the way it typically goes in the reality world is a producer will wear an IFB with a single earbud headset in one ear because they're wearing a walkie-talkie in the other ear.
Mhm.
And we would hand out the IFB with the rental house's headset. And over time, more often than not, the producer said, no, thanks, I'll use my own iPhone earbuds or whatever. And I just, this one show, the showrunner, the executive producer, hated it, did not want to use his own iPhone earbuds either. So I had to keep searching for a solution for him. And I found out no good solution existed. There were single earbud headsets built for news. So, telex or audio implements. These things are expensive and don't have the highest fidelity. The commonly used one at the time is a coily, stretchy. It's called a listen-only headset. It's made for walkie-talkies, and it sounds like a walkie-talkie, and it's big and it's uncomfortable. And I just thought, this is absurd that there is no option for us. And when I realized that there was no option for us, I said, well, okay, I need to create an option for us. And I set about making a single earbud headset for this particular producer. That's how the Field Monitor was born. So having this, let's tie everything together, right? Having this business mindset in the back of my head at all times. Okay, well, if I'm going to create a product, I need to know how to sell this product. Okay, we need to form a company. I need all of the proper licenses and registrations and do this properly and figure out how to get it manufactured properly and have all the insurances and everything that goes into place with it. And that's how Halter Technical was born. And the Field Monitor took off and did great. I iterated upon the product. The current generation, which is still available, is I believe, third iteration of it, just making it better, improving it along the way. But people also said, why don't you do something for scripted TV? My script supervisor or the clients and agency needs something. And that's how the Scene Monitor was born. And they said, well, why don't you make something more substantial for the directors and the executives on set? And that's how the Elite Monitor was born. So it all comes from this realization that no headphone company caters to production sound. None. They all make things that may touch some of the needs that we have, but none of them know what we're doing because they're not on set with us and they don't know exactly what we need. Even the sound mixers on set, we use studio headphones, right? We're most of the time not in a studio. We could be out on the beach in Mexico, or we could be in a blizzard, or we could be on a nice air-conditioned stage. We can be in any climate imaginable and have different monitoring needs. We might need high isolation. We might need breathable just to get through the day. So all these things, having that eureka moment of, oh, we can be the headphone company that makes things specific for production sound and make things for specific jobs on set, because that reality producer does have a different audio monitoring need than the script supervisor, who does have a different need than the scripted film director. And so being able to make specific tools for specific jobs, there's that theme again, right?
Yeah.
Being able to do that is really what propels this company forward. And now is not just my focus, but my mission to create tools that we need on set because no one else is.
Yeah. And you're right. And it's funny because it almost feels like the manufacturers that are focused on mass market certainly aren't going to do it because they're looking at the mass market. They're not looking at this
Exactly.
tiny little niche of production sound people. And so you see that reflected in their products for sure. Just,
Yeah.
you know, here, for example, just to give people an idea. So these are the ones you're wearing right now, right?
Yes, the Elite monitor.
The Elite monitor. And what I love about these is that the cable, A, is not coiled, and B,
Hmm.
is short. It is purpose made for running down to a belt pack receiver, or yeah, belt pack receiver, an IFB. And so you don't have this big tangle of cable that you're trying to manage. Because before this, before I ever used any of these or the the other monitors, I had these little Sonys, which were basically consumer grade, foldable, really cheap. Like if they cost $20 and they just came back as a mess every single time. I mean,
Hmm.
the cable was long, too long, and the folding mechanism was not robust. And those are
Now,
basically, they became an expendable. They
yes,
really literally were an expendable. And not only were they an expendable, but they were an expendable that nobody liked using.
right.
Yeah.
Well, look, don't get me wrong. Those are great headphones. They have their purpose.
Yeah,
Their purpose is not our purpose.
exactly.
Even Sony calls them general purpose headphones. That is how
Yes.
they are labeled on their website. And a
Hmm.
lot of the headphones that we come across on set are general purpose headphones. And having headphones made, knowing how people are going to use them, that's the value that Halter Technical that we bring to set. Um, and like I said, Sony and other major manufacturers, they don't know what we need because they can't know what we need. They're not out there doing it. They have bigger fish to fry, so to speak. They
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
another master to serve, right? So it's all about each of those details. So the cable length, the cable being, near indestructible, the connector being near indestructible, having headphones that the ear cups kind of articulate side to side to be
Hmm.
able to cup the ear so to prevent leakage. Having these are a matte black rubberized coating to minimize light reflections because it's the director who may be sitting at a monitor watching the shot, but they also may be right on top of the actors, and reducing glare is important. And it's all these little things that add up to a specific product for a specific person at a specific moment.
Yeah.
Um, and that's my goal in creating these products, and having people tell me what they need and then listening to them and bringing it to them. It's also it's incredibly rewarding for me when people tell me, oh, the director, uses your field monitor, they pick that over any other option, and it's because they see the benefit. And I
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
hard to not only produce products with those benefits, but to get the messaging out, right? This is why our products are made for this purpose. So it's important to me, and it's important to the company, and people are seeing that it's translating on set.
That's great. And so you're definitely filling that niche to a much greater extent than,
Yeah.
these much larger companies. So
Yeah.
excellent. I wondered if we could pick your brain for a few minutes here. We had a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. Do you
Yeah,
mind
for
if I
sure.
run a couple of those by you? Okay, first up is from, this was actually an anonymously submitted one, but how would you handle overhead mic selection and setup to cover more than two people indoors that are really, really close to each other? So you wouldn't necessarily have, normally if you're trying to prevent mic bleed, you'd move people apart a little bit more if you could. But
Sure.
say you don't have that option. So how would you go about choosing boom mics for that? And how many would you choose? Say we had three people sitting nearly right next to each other.
Yeah. Um, the first thing I would do is ask more questions, because in this hypothetical scenario, where are we? What is the emotion of the scene? What are we trying to convey? Are we on a beach? Are we in a quiet room? Are they whispering to each other? Are they shouting at each other? What um, what is the context of the film? Are we shooting a comedy? Are we shooting a drama? because that will likely affect the focal length of the lens, right? So are we full body? Are we on a wide shot? So all of these things, it may seem pretty basic, 2 or 3 people close together. What mic do I put overhead?
Mm-hmm.
But it really depends on the situation. And that maybe people think that's a cop-out answer, and I'm not giving you a specific brand, because that's what this question is going for, right? They want to know what specific brand and
Sure.
what specific model.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell you a cardioid mic directly overhead in the center of 2 or 3 of these people is likely going to be good enough, because you want to minimize the number of sound sources available at any one time or open at any one time. So being able to cover it with one boom mic may be ideal in certain situations and maybe less ideal in others. Is this scripted where there are head turns? Is this improv where it may be a scripted comedy, but the actors are known for ad-libbing and going off script? So there's all kinds of things that throw wrenches into the scenario. So to that person, my answer would be use the tool that you think is going to best capture that scene and give the director what they want in the best way possible.
Yep. I agree. It really depends on the situation. So that's I think good insight in and of itself, for sure.
Yes. Also, Sennheiser MK50. But
yeah, sure. Or 8050, whichever you prefer, if you like the newer sound. Cool. So there's another question that we have just a couple more minutes here. I wanted to run in. This one's an unusual one. At least I scratched my head a little bit.
Okay.
So Keith here is looking for some wireless. He's used electrosonics in the past, but he's not doing high budget things. So he's looking at maybe a set of Sennheiser G4s, the kind of the prosumer.
Great systems.
Yeah, great system. One of the things he found, though, is when he went to look at B&H, he found that they come in 2 different blocks. You can buy a 516 to 558 megahertz or a 470 to 516 megahertz, and they come in at different prices.
Okay.
And at first I was like, I can't imagine why they would be different prices. What are your insights on that, Doc?
So I can't speak specifically to Sennheiser's business practices, but I can say on a whole, manufacturers often have set wholesale prices that they charge the dealers, and then those dealers have different accounting practices. So if the price of the same piece of gear, just in different frequency ranges, is different, it's most likely an accounting practice by the dealer. There is no functional difference in the equipment.
Right.
That's most likely what we're seeing there. And to confirm that, I would encourage checking out other local dealers and seeing if they are at the same prices as some of those large box store ones. And you also might get a deal from local, smaller specialty shops as well. So I would always shop around and check out who is not only going to offer you the best price, but the best service as well.
Okay, good. All right. And then there's one last one. And this one, I actually have an answer, so don't feel on the spot if this is just working in a domain that you don't have exposure to. This is from Camille. Camille says, I recently installed the Noise Assist plugin on my Sound Devices MixPre 6.2. Very satisfied. Thank you for your review. Now I also have an Apollo Twin X, so an audio interface. Do you happen to know if there's also a plugin that does the same for Apollo? A noise gate often doesn't have the desired effect because when you talk, you hear the background noise. Yes. If not, is there an audio chain possible to use the Apollo with my MixPre in order to still be able to use Noise Assist?
Well, I don't know specifically if there is a plugin for the Apollo, but there are many options for noise reduction in post. If you're using this for a live broadcast, if this is a live stream or a live broadcast, then you would need a plugin, something to run it live. If not, you're going to have much more flexibility, much more control over it by doing it after the fact. So while I don't know if there's something specific for the Apollo, the mix pre is also an interface. If you are using these for live streaming, they can accomplish the same thing. While the mic pre's may be different, may sound a little bit different on each one, they're essentially functioning the same as a USB interface. So I don't know. Do you know, is there a specific Apollo plugin?
There actually is. So Camille, if you do a search, just do a Google search for Apollo noise reduction. And there is actually, I don't remember the name, it's C Suite or something like that. But there is a plugin you can do that. But I agree with what you're saying, Doc, is that it could be that Camille is using a bunch of other plugins for their Apollo as well. So they want to be able to maintain those as well. But the plugin does do real-time processing. So you do have an option there on your Apollo. Again, you could just use the mix pre. If noise reduction is the main type of processing you need to do on a live basis, then that noise assist can do some pretty nice magic. At least I found it works really nicely on kind of steady state sound, sound that's pretty constant, like a fan or a compressor or something like that.
And there are lots of other plugins and options that you can use in real time as well, that go right into your DAW. So there's no shortage of options available to accomplish what you need to. Or, you can just turn the air conditioning off in your room.
And sweat it out. Indeed. Good. All right. We have just a couple of minutes for questions from the live audience. Let's go ahead and pull one of those up, Danny, if we've got. A question for Doc. I work with a team of guys in live production who freeze up every time they encounter a problem instead of fixing on the fly. Advice for resolving live problems I can give. What are your thoughts on it? How do you train somebody up, mentor somebody to be a little bit more nimble?
Okay, well, if you work with a team of guys who freeze up every time, start hiring women. So this is, again, all about experience and training, right? If people are trained to do things a certain way, have a certain process, it's hard to get people out of those habits. So as the head of the department, I'm assuming you're the head of the department. If you're the head of the department and you are running your team, it's about you implementing those policies and you having a specific process of, when we encounter a problem, here's what I need you to do as my team, as my support system. Whether it's alert me immediately and I'll make the call, or if it's something you can step in and do without negatively affecting the broadcast, they need to be empowered with those decision-making abilities, right? They have to know, okay, I can step in and I'm not going to offend people, or I can't step in this moment because I will offend people. So as the head of the department, managing your team, it'll all fall back on you. If there are people that just cannot adapt to your needs, well, it's time for a discussion. It's time to manage that crew, and it may be time to replace them as well. And look for, it's easy to teach technical audio engineering, right? Mm-hmm. Those things are easy. I can teach somebody, press this button or plug A into B, and that's how you make those things work. It's a lot harder to teach composure and compassion and all of those intangible qualities. So I would encourage you to start looking for those qualities in crewmates as well.
Yeah, that's, I think, good advice. I think part of it, what I find too in my work, is that in some cases, some of the folks in the department don't have a good fundamentals. They don't understand some of the fundamentals. You talked about signal chain, for example. It's critical that everyone in the sound department understands basic signal chain and what that means. And because that's a fundamental troubleshooting skill, understanding, okay, I got to follow my signal chain. I'm going to the start, run my way through it. We're going
Yeah.
to figure out where this problem is, and we'll fix it from there. Another thing, routing is another one that just, for beginners, they just don't understand routing. And so helping your team to have a basic understanding, a fundamental understanding of routing and how that works, and just so you can trace through an entire signal chain and figure out where that problem lies and fix it. So if they're freezing because they don't know, that's one thing. And I think, Doc, you bring up another great point. If it's just a personality thing, maybe
Yeah.
live's not for them, maybe, maybe.
By the way,
maybe
I
they should
did
look at
just
post.
watch your video on audio routing and thought it was fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
And audio routing could be a 10-day course in and of itself.
For sure.
But you did a
For
great
sure.
job on that. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for everyone. It looks like, Doc, they love having you on the show. So thanks for coming on the show today. One thing I wanted to mention really quickly before we wrap here, though, is that, Doc, you have a haltertechnical.com is where people can find out about
Yes.
the headphone company, right? You also did a video recently about the future of production sound, which I just stumbled on this morning and I have in my queue. I can't wait to go watch it. So that's on your YouTube channel, is that right?
It is on the YouTube channel, and also featured on the website itself. We do, with Halter, we do a series of webinars that are informational, and help people progress, not just technically, but in their careers as well. There's even a webinar happening shortly today that is about helping freelancers with their financial game. So it's a basics of financial planning and understanding. We have a financial consultant on board who will helps freelancers navigate those waters too. The Future of Production Sound webinar was one that I had a blast on. It's a lot of speculation. It's a lot of prediction. People who watch it will point to some things and go, oh yeah, that's obviously going to happen. And there's no way in hell that's going to happen. So it's fun. It was a fun one for me. I think people get a good kick out of it too.
Good. Well, Doc, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your Sunday to come and talk to us and share your experiences. Thanks so much.
I love geeking out. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
All right.
Take care. All right, everybody, get out there, make some great sound, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care, everybody.